So that shiny new game just came out, Life is Strange, Double Exposure, and you want to know if it's worth your time, right? Well, let's take a look at the game first and first impressions. Keep in mind, this is not a full review, this is a quick look at the game. I played the game for about 2.5 hours, so I'll show some footage of the game while describing it and giving a few thoughts on it. 2.5 hours of playtime got me to the beginning of Chapter 2, and that's as far as I've gotten so far. Performance for this game is rough too. You'll need a pretty beefy PC to turn up those graphics. Unfortunately, there are no DLSS or FSR options in this game. I played on 1440p with a 3080 Ti, medium settings with anti-aliasing and textures on cinematic. I also had the resolution turned down from 100. I went 4 clicks to the left on that. I then also limited my FPS to 60. All of that I needed to do in order to have a smooth playthrough and a recording good enough for YouTube. If I were to play with max settings on 1440p, I'd be somewhere around 40 to 50 FPS. Since this game is so slow paced though, 60 FPS that I was playing at is completely fine for this kind of game. I've played a few Life is Strange games before, but the majority of them was so long ago that I don't even remember the story. I remember Max, but I can't remember the story of her. I did play the True Colors game when that came out. I thought that game was pretty good, but that was a whole different character. Regardless, the story is now back to Max. Max is older and seems to be a teacher at a university. Well, a photographer working there at least. I think she also holds workshops there, so she's like teacher adjacent. For some reason, her powers either haven't worked for some time, or she hasn't used her powers in a long time. One of the two. I'm unsure. Okay, so the game begins with you customizing Max's clothing. The options are limited though. You can choose one of 8 indoor styles and one of 8 outdoor styles. I'll be skipping over a few scenes and scenarios, but when Max and Sophie are sitting in a restaurant, a girl named Amanda works there. She seems to be hitting on Max, and so Sophie gets Max to ask Amanda out. I guess Max is into girls. Also, Sophie is like one of her best friends in this game. Before that though, I looked around at some of what the game has to offer. You can pull up Max's phone and read through text messages, both old and new, of several people. Sometimes when you get new messages, you'll be able to reply as well. To the left of the messages, it'll show your current objective, and to the right is Crosstalk, which is the game's social media platform that people make posts on or post pictures on. Your character will also post on there, and you can browse and snoop through all of that whenever you want. Also, if you're unaware of these sorts of games, the majority of what you're doing is making decisions as you talk to people. You can walk around and interact a little bit here and there. Sometimes it'll even be necessary, but the real meat of the game is making decisions. After every decision, or at least after most of them, the game will say, this action will have consequences. I believe that means whatever decision that you make will affect how the game plays out. I'm unsure how many endings there are, but there's undoubtedly multiple. Okay, so when Max asked out Amanda, Amanda agrees. Fast forward, Max, Sophie, and Moses are on the roof hanging out, and then Sophie gets a phone call and walks off. Fast forward even more, and Max is taking a photo of an owl. She then starts getting head pain, and her nose is starting to bleed. She was only out for a moment, but then things get weird. She starts hearing and seeing things that aren't quite happening. She rushes after Sophie because she heard a gunshot, but then she can clearly see Sophie walking and talking on the phone. When she does catch up to Sophie though, Sophie is actually dead from a gunshot wound. Fast forward again, and I guess Max has been isolating herself in her house. Amanda comes over with food that she made for Max and calls Max a friend. I guess their date is canceled now that Max is friend zoned. A big fast forward now, I'm skipping over a lot, and Max is outside talking to Moses. He walks away, but then she still hears him. She's confused, and at this point she activates her powers for the first time all game. However, this is a different power than what she used in previous games. What she's seeing is actually an alternate timeline, and in the other timeline, Sophie is still alive. Also, when she talks to Amanda again, it turns out that in this timeline, Max just ignored Amanda for 2 days and didn't answer any messages. Max wasn't friend zoned in this timeline, she simply didn't show up for the date at all. When you walk to the bathroom area in the restaurant in chapter 2, you'll now be able to change the timelines. You can switch back and forth between the two of them, one where Sophie is dead and one where she's alive. At this point though, I had my first issue with the game. When you go to change timelines in the bathroom, the game would crash every single time. How I fixed that is by going to settings and turning simple power effects to yes. After that, the game would no longer crash in that spot and I could change timelines with no issue. I'm sure this is going to be fixed in a future update though. I got off at this point, but what I understand of the game is that Max will be trying to solve Sophie's murder in one timeline while at the same time trying to prevent her murder in the other timeline. I think this game is turning out to be quite interesting indeed. Besides performance, I think this is a pretty good game so far. I'm really curious to know what's going to happen next. Though that's my personal opinion. Whether or not this is your type of game, I'll see you on the next one.